Good evening, Internet! I may have just blown out your speakers! I don't know! You're watching NonPro TV Party Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. recap show. I'm your host, Frank, joined not at all in studio, by Matt and James. Hi, Matt and James. On NonPro's TV Party, we do a live Google Plus Hangout series that is incredibly poorly produced because it's live and it's Google Plus and it's, YouTube. I don't know. I'm just making excuses. Where we geek out about our favorite television shows, mostly Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And, this is our mid-season finale. This is Season 3's mid-season finale. That's a mouthful, isn't it, guys?
Yes. Season 3 mid-season finale. Yeah, wow.
It's a little weird. We're going to do 2 episodes today. It's actually the prequel to the mid-season finale and last week's episode. I think they're called Closure and Maveth? Yes. Whatever the hell a Maveth is. Seems like we could have looked that up. Seems like we could have put the bare minimum amount of work into this.
Maveth is Hebrew for death. That's the name of the place.
Oh, yeah. You're right. They actually even... so beyond bare minimum. Just paying attention to the episode we are allegedly reviewing. Good. Non-productive. Take that. All right. It was
that, NBC.
Yeah, suck it. It was a pretty interesting series of episodes, and it's been a pretty interesting season so far. I don't like just going into like review mode. We certainly don't do play-by-play reviews on the show. There's a specific thing I'd like to bring up and discuss, which is Girls in Refrigerators, which is a comic book thing. But before we get to that, we're going to just do a quick, what our feelings were. I was pretty excited by the last 2 episodes. I thought they were pretty fast-paced. There was a few moments where I'm like, just cut some of these scenes out. We're okay without them. But for the most part, I was actually surprised by most of the things they've done. And that has been the most surprising thing about the series, is how often they can surprise me. As a person who's kind of genre-savvy and who watches too much TV, you'd think that by now I'd be less shocked by the things that happen, but they do the writers have done a pretty good job of surprising me. So that's my major takeaway. What about either of you guys?
I think I'm kind of the same as you, Frank, in this boat. I watch a lot of television, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., just for whatever reason, is fun at subverting my expectations. Does a good job at that. And I think it's even more than disappointing when they fall into kind of a big trope. And I think that's why I was a bit meh on the lead-in episode. But I really ended up enjoying the mid-season finale. It kind of took it back for me. So.
Cool. All right, we want to revisit that mehness, maybe, unless it's just completely uninteresting, but in a little bit. Matt, what do you think?
Well, unlike you guys, I don't watch a lot of TV, so everything was actually cool and interesting, and I don't sit here with all these terrible, boring and cynical opinions. No.
You want a better television experience? Be ignorant, like Matt.
Exactly.
Wow. Ignorant.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you. Wow. All right, continue, Matt.
Wow. Actually, there were. Although I will agree with a couple of you guys. There were some things I'm kind of not sure. I wasn't sure about going to the lead-in. I really did enjoy the mid-season finale. I'm curious about what they're going to go in the direction. I feel like they went in a direction that I'm not too sure about, but I do have confidence that the show will continue to defy expectations and make stuff that what we assume into something even better than what we hope it'll be.
Yeah, I also have, and from what I could gather from having these discussions off Hangout, is that a lot of the fans do have a lot of not hope, because that suggests that they aren't being delivered, faith, that they have a lot of faith in what's happening so far, and it has paid off a lot. I've read some interesting reviews here and there that kind of say, well, what have you done for me since Captain America Winter Soldier did the S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm like, that was pretty cool. That was like a whole series that synced up to a movie. I don't know. And I think that faith carries on through other events that they've done. One of the things I thought was really strong in the lead-up episode, which is Closure, there was a lot of mirroring and I guess we're going to hit on some of the softball stuff first. Ward and his, or I should say, we'll make it. We'll do it a little differently. Coulson and Roz. The fact that those two characters who live in a very dangerous situation, they're both spies or spy masters or whatever, and they're in a place where basically they're putting their own lives and the lives of their loved ones in risk. And I think the way that mirrors out with Fitz and Simmons, who I guess are also spies, but they're primarily scientists in the show. I do like how the series does that A and B plot link pretty well. I think the last episode was a good example of linking up those A's and the B plots, so that you could see, oh, this is sort of mirroring what's happening in the other story. It's a TV series standard to do that, but I think they do a pretty impressive job of doing it. Anybody else see anything like that, or want to comment on anything in particular? Maybe on Fitz and Simmons' relationship?
I feel like we've talked about this before, because there were definitely moments where I actually saw the connection between Fitz and Simmons and Roz and Coulson, and I guess also beyond Fitz and Simmons, I also kind of see connections between Rosalind Coulson and also Hunter and Bobby, at least in the aspect of keeping secrets and figuring out what or what not to say to your significant other, considering your professions. And I also kind of find it interesting how the younger ones, they feel the need is okay, we keep on telling each other lies, even though we know they're lies, because we gotta at least play the part. While Rosalind and Coulson is we've been in this game for so long, lying is too much of a bother. There's no point in just even pretending that we're trying to tell the truth about something. If there's a lie, we'll call each out on it,
right?
And without trying to play the game anymore, because they're older and they're kind of tired of it.
Right, and there's deep, bigger lies that kind of overshadow that relationship for the few episodes we've had them, about a half a season.
Mm-hmm.
But they do seem they play out differently. So you've got the angsty stuff that happens a little bit with Fitz and Simmons. The "I love you, but the universe will never sync up," which is kind of a little weird. And especially with Sky and Captain Electricity. What was his name? Jefferson. He's some president. Lincoln. That's it. I'm surprised I never think of him as Benjamin Franklin, because that would make sense, right?
Electricity.
The toughest.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, but what I loved about Rosalind and Coulson was that they felt really comfortable. I almost said old shoes, which is really, they're not that old, but you know what I mean. It felt
it felt right.
We've done this before, to some extent.
Well, I think, and this is a comment not directly for the plot, but I think so much of the show's got just a really talented cast. I feel I don't know. I feel this show gets looked over for being some sort of just genre show on television, but all the actors do a really great job in their roles. To a most extent. I don't think Sky and Lincoln have that great a chemistry, but
it's different than not having chemistry and just being bad at acting.
Yeah, I don't think they're bad actors. It's just I think one of the things that's so great about Coulson and Rosalind, and maybe even the two actors, is that they felt like they had chemistry together. And I think that goes a long way for making us believe what we're seeing.
I agree. I was going to interrupt with a reference to the old Adventures of New Christine. Adventures of Old Christine? I think that's the one. But they're both with Clark Gregg and
Constance Zimmer?
Yeah, Constance Zimmer were both in that. But I don't know why. It was really kind of a weak place to interrupt. Anyways, so we're pussyfooting around it. I think one of the things that makes the main crux of the 2-episode lead-in, and I'm going to say that there's two major actions. There's the death of Rosalind, right? And then there's the kidnapping of Fitz and Simmons, but then mostly Fitz because he's the one who's in direct danger. But you could say Simmons too. So that the kidnapping, the once again Ward kidnapping Fitz and Simmons, and the death of Rosalind are two of the major action sequences or events that carry us through this mid-season story. And just to deal with that first one, Rosalind's death left me extremely uncomfortable, and I could describe two reasons why. The good reason, right? The good storytelling reason is that I became invested in that relationship. Not to like, I'm not going to joke around. I'm not going to say stuff about shipping and whatever. It really did seem genuine and interesting, and not necessarily perfect. In fact, beyond perfect, but maybe as perfect as two master spies could. Or two people, if you like are offended by the idea of a master spy, two people who are working in government and have to lie professionally, like that's probably the best relationship you can get. Or there was a seed of it, and I feel like it was snatched away. And I feel like the good is that in universe, in the fiction, you're supposed to also feel that way. That this isn't someone who died off camera. This isn't some character Victoria Hand, for example. Beyond the comic book, I had no real vested interest in the character, but Rosalind had potential that was snatched away. That's great. The other side of it is, Rosalind died in the hands of our hero, and then he swears revenge, and he goes after the person who did it, and it motivates him gives him drive to continue on with the plot, and there's a lot of that feels like right at least at the edge of girl in the refrigerator, female character, or even any character who just all they do is die to motivate the hero. And I felt that I was aware of it when it was happening. I was aware that it was a potential that was happening. I spoke a lot. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna jump in here. One of the things I said is like S.H.I.E.L.D. has been really good at subverting my expectations, and this, again, it did what it was supposed to do. It made me dislike Ward. It made me angry. Blah 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 blah. I already disliked Ward.
Yeah.
And this felt just so cliched. And then I'll get into it later, but I felt like I psyched myself up. I'm like, okay, they killed Rosalind. This is going to be a hardcore episode. They're not going to pull any punches. And then there were a couple of things later on where I'm like, I really feel like you're pulling those punches. Like you threw out your big hand right in the opening 10 minutes, and that was it. That was all you had. Can
you give us one example, because we talked about this, and I want to at least tease it before we get Matt's opinion.
So I think my problem was, and this could just be me. This could be completely wrong, but I feel like the torturing of Fitz and Simmons was super intense in that episode, and Ward is like really hyped up when Coulson says, I have your brother. This is. He puts Ward in like a bad emotional state, and Ward walks right out of Fitz's room, and the next thing we hear is Gemma screaming, and it's terrible, and I just imagine like the most awful things I could ever imagine are happening in there, and I don't necessarily want S.H.I.E.L.D. to go there, we don't need some sort of crazy terrible torture plot,
right?
But, I was definitely, we just saw Rosalind die in Coulson's arms. I was definitely looking for, like, some lasting effects of this. And I feel like later on when we see Gemma, she's got, like, a little cut on her face. Like, I guess that there are things we don't see or whatever. I don't know. I just felt like that needed to be addressed. Again, it's tricky. I certainly wouldn't want it to go into some sort of, like, real how TV shows and things can get like into torture porn or something like really terrible really fast. Like I certainly didn't want that.
You feel like they ratcheted up the tension with Rosalind's death, and then they immediately dropped the ball with the Fitz and Simmons thing. Okay.
Well, that's my thing. I feel like they had this tension all through it, and then it just drops. You know what I mean? Like they've been ratcheting it up, and it just felt like it kind of just whimpers out.
All right, I'm going to go too far away from that point because Matt hasn't said what he thinks about this situation.
Okay. Um, I'm the resident, well, not a comic book guy, but I do kind of know like what Frank is talking about, the whole entire girl in the refrigerator thing, and I know that's a really big issue when it comes to comic books and comic book like based fiction and stuff. And so like actually seeing that, I was actually kind of aware of it as well, and kind of surprised that they went in that direction. And honestly, it made me wonder if that was the right decision they made, or and I do kind of wonder like what the long term effect is going to be if they're going to actually bring it back when they come back from the break. But reading up on other people's reactions, a lot of people have like some people have said that like the whole entire idea with Girl in the Refrigerator, that it was sudden, it was out of nowhere, and it was like the sole motivation for the hero. Like with Coulson, like it was the boiling point. It was the thing that pushed him over the edge. But this wasn't the only thing that like Ward has done to screw with Coulson, and then things were just adding up. And like this wasn't the sole motivation. And I think like you were kind of not supposed to think that Coulson was doing the right thing, like abducting Ward's brother, like holding a bank hostage. He wasn't like this. Oh, this is a heroic thing. Like Coulson has to do to avenge. Like no, Coulson is doing some pretty terrible stuff, and he's not. So he's well, probably as close as like you were gonna get in the series so far with him not being a hero. So in that case, I kind of see James's point where I feel like they kind of dropped the ball. I feel like they might have really should have pushed the issue that what Coulson is doing wasn't the right call. I mean, you sort of have it with like both like Bobby and Hunter questioning him, who are arguably the most amoral of the team. Like they have morals, but they're willing to do stuff
Exactly.
that isn't that kind. Like, and they did question it, but I do agree with James that they could have pushed the issue more.
Exactly, and I think that's exactly what I wanted to see. Coulson put Ward in a situation where he had to react a certain way, and that he was going to go take that out on Simmons. I really wanted to see a manifestation of Coulson's actions. You know what I mean? Like Coulson's rash decisions should have affected Simmons in that torture scene. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's what I wanted.
2 points I'd like to bring up. One, maybe to put a button on the Rosalind's death, whether or not it was a just motivation. I don't know if it's quite a defense to say, well, our hero ended up being like a badass hero because of it, so that doesn't make it, justified. Because I think like, my example usually outside of Girl from in the Refrigerator is the classic Mel Gibson revenge fantasy movie where like his family dies and then he goes out for revenge. But the family could be like, you could not even, or a Steven Seagal movie, like you just don't even need to know who the actors who were playing the family. Like, they just die. You could actually have like the picture that comes in the frame be like, this was my family, they died, and now I want revenge.
It's
and then
broken.
that's it.
One piece of shattered glass.
Right.
It's artistic.
We should make this movie. Anyways, no. So I don't know about that aspect of it, but I will say that related to it, and this is where it might be different. And they probably, if they had one more episode to play with, it would have been a lot more comfortable. Is that both Rosalind and Coulson were in dangerous situations they had put themselves in, right? So it's a little disingenuous because we don't see Rosalind taking a hell of a lot of risks physically, like put in a dangerous situation, but it's implied heavily. And there are situations where you've seen her taking charge of government organizations that are militarized, that fight. She was killed, but she was also killed as part of this, being an undercover agent for Hydra or against Hydra now. I mean, we didn't see any of the consequences of her discovering that Hydra was her secret benefactor. If there was one more episode where she had done that, given her some agency there, then it would be
I agree with that.
clear. But right now, it's sort of like, okay, I kind of see it because she did have a certain amount of agency, but it felt rushed, and I think that was the issue with it. Something else you two brought up, the second point I want to bring up, is Coulson, and whether or not he's a badass or not a badass, if he had done the wrong thing, and etc. Heroes taking innocent lives or taking the law into their own hands. So this is a thing that is a pretty tropey in superhero fiction and comic book, in the genre, where it's a hero has to make the tough decision whether or not to kill the villain because that villain really needs some killing. And it could be the Batman with Joker, it could be Superman with Zod, it could be pretty much any sort of. It happens in Jessica Jones without any spoilers. It's pretty a given for superhero stories is at one point or other the hero who, even if they're a little bit of a dark hero, will still have to wrestle with the idea of how far do they take the law in their own hands, despite the fact that they're masked vigilantes. And of all the times I've ever seen it portrayed, and again, no spoilers for anything else, that includes Man of Steel, it includes most of Batman whenever he leaves, Joker's like, I don't have to save you. And certainly with a certain Marvel property that just hit Netflix, Jessica Jones, I would say Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Coulson as the hero role. I'm not saying he's a superhero, but as the hero role. And the situation with Ward, I think that was probably the best I've ever seen that situation dealt with. At no point, and that is a large amount of that is to do with the acting on the part of Ward and Coulson and the sound design and the direction. There's something about that scene where Coulson takes his revenge or finally ends it, depending on which way you're looking at it. That seems just like really unsatisfying. Whereas in most fictions, when I see a hero, either take the life or refuse to take a life, it feels like, why are you being dealt with plot? You are just doing something because the plot tells you to do it. This felt real and also unsatisfying in a good way. I don't know if you guys know what I'm getting at or agree or totally disagree.
I don't know if I agree that it was unsatisfying, but I definitely felt what I felt like I should feel, right? But maybe that it was unsatisfying, but also that it was like wrong. Like this feels exactly what like revenge will not fulfill you feels like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like that is the emotion I'm feeling right now. I think the only way I could get closer is being unfulfilled for my own revenge.
If you were to kill the man who killed the woman who brought you a burger, phrasing it that way makes it feel much more like a girl in the refrigerator, doesn't it? Girl who brought you the burger. What was your name? How were you cast as?
But I mean, and I think that's where I moved from meh to awesome. I really liked the second episode. I felt like the second episode went back to doing that thing where it subverted a lot of fun stuff. It opened up a lot of neat possibilities. Where I had a bit of problem in the lead-up episode with someone like Mac, right? Because I felt like he had been so sure in previous seasons, to see him kind of questioning his own authority. I didn't really buy it, so it was nice in the second episode to see him being like, nope, this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leader now. I definitely think like the second episode definitely was more satisfying to me than the lead-up episode, which is a thing that I think isn't uncommon with these kind of big two-parters. The conclusion tends to be a little more punchy.
Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go with both of you guys. I thought that scene at the end was fantastically done, all around, like all different aspects. I mean, it felt really unsatisfying as well. But like kind of like also the end, like the stare, like Coulson and Fitz give each other. Mm-hmm. As they both they realize what both of them just did on the other side of that portal, and it's kind of like the look of like we know what we did, and no one else can ever know.
Fitz's look is almost like, are you serious? You seriously doing this?
I want to know what Fitz is thinking, because Fitz wants to kill Ward as much as anybody. I hope he doesn't go with the full, I can't believe you did that. Because I feel like there has got to be some other emotional reaction than what we usually get from characters in these situations, which is, you used to be better than them. I'm not saying that we should just justify killing people. I'm just saying that there should be like a, yeah, I don't know.
I want it to be like a was it worth it? Because like as much as Fitz wanted to kill Ward, as much as anybody else, Fitz was not willing to put his life, his future, his friends, everything else on the other side of the portal at risk just to make sure that Ward was finished.
He wanted to get out of there.
But Coulson was.
Yeah.
And that's what they were risking.
There were a lot of people in this world that would risk a lot of things to kill Ward. And I'm curious about what they're all going to say to Coulson as they gradually find out.
It'll be neat.
It's like, Hunter, shut up. You would totally do it. You know you would. You're a doofus. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
I feel like I also don't want to see Fitz go like you're the whole entire year better than this, but I almost kind of want to see him like as like what we did, like what like Coulson did and what he did, like killing quote unquote killing Will. Kind of like I think like I kind of want Fitz to be like I think this was the right decision, and I'm terrified that I think that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like we made like what we did was terrible. We did make the right calls, but like why am I thinking that? Like
yeah.
I kind of hope they play it like because like I'm sure like I know like they're gonna play up on Fitz. Like did he make the right decision about? Well, he's gonna. Well, I know he made the right decision, but like he's gonna really feel like the effects of killing Will, like probably for the rest of the season at least, because I know that like is no that's gonna be weighing down on him heavily. So
I kind of want to go quickly through. Speaking of that, a bunch of like favorite moments or things that we think might come up in future season, the next half of the season. You could do either or mix it up. I do enjoy Hunter waving to the camera to the heat-seeking.
I like Hunter.
Yeah. Hunter's good. Yeah, he's definitely growing on I think everybody.
Yeah, and Joey. I think Joey had a really good moment to show his heroism in a way that was like reflective of the character and his powers. I mean, trying to take a bullet, but also not taking the bullet because they dissolved, and his enthusiasm on bulletproof afterward. The fact that he didn't actually die was really good for me. I was excited by that. That was another favorite thing as well. I'm not sure about what I think about Will being so swiftly dealt with, because I mean, I'm sure there will be some consequences to Will himself not being around. I also feel like Gemma can't really blame herself too much for it, and Fitz really shouldn't either. Like at that point, it's hard to see where the tension comes. Certainly not the romantic tension, and I'm kind of wary about what the writers are going to do about it after this point. You know?
Yeah, I mean, for the Fitzsimmons things, look, I knew Will wasn't getting off that planet. It just, it wasn't trope subverting. It was just there's a hole. The writers wrote themselves into it. It's a complex situation, and they could either risk having to write this kind of Three's a Company sort of problem when they get outside, or one of them doesn't come back. Look, I saw where that was going. I didn't hate it. I like that Fitz got I
saw the opposite. I saw that them like, yeah, all right, now both of them come back because that's how we ratchet up the tension.
No, I feel like somehow I knew that they weren't coming back. So I liked that. Well, I don't know if I liked it, but I kind of saw where that was going. I liked Mac leading. I love any episode where we get to see them be spies. Like this episode was really great. They all worked together. They all followed orders really well. I thought it was really kind of neat when Gemma released Lash. That's fun tension. I knew we're not. I'm happy we're not done with Andrew. I think he does a great job, and I don't want to say I want to see May suffer more, but their dynamic is just interesting. it's something I want to see more of. I was really sad to see Ward go because I'm a monster. But I'm really, really happy that what's his name? Who plays Ward?
Brett Dalton.
Brett Dalton. Spoilers, I guess, because of the post-credits tease. I'm super excited that he still gets to stay on the show and he gets to be the death thing. I think he kills it as Ward. I think he is so creepy and effed up, and I'm super excited to have him do more on this show. Yeah.
I do like the idea that he could play a different character now, theoretically.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if there was to be my favorite thing from this episode, it's got to be that. It's the prospect of Brett Dalton getting to play some other character that could be equally as messed up and awesome.
Good. Matt, you got any things you'd like to share?
I also love the brief moments we've had with Lash. I thought the scene when May came across like the destruction Lash left in that room was horrible and really creepy. Just kind of like the implications of what Lash did, like on his way out. I thought that was really well done and like super disturbing. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Andrew for the rest of the season in the future. I was also really sad that Ward, I guess, died or in some way, but I'm glad he's back.
People?
But I mean, I was mostly disappointed because I felt like the only person that needed to take down Ward was Daisy. Like if it would only be fitting for the story for me if Daisy was the one to finally finish Ward off. So I'm happy. You're shaking your head, James, but yeah, I know I'm right.
No, the only reason I would say that is is because of one of the few things I really liked from the lead up episode was this in the lead up episode where he interviews everybody about Ward, and he gets to know everybody. Daisy and Coulson talking about just how much she gets him was just fantastic, right? I think the way they all thought about him was fantastic. It was really one of the great scenes from the lead-up episode. But I guess it was in that moment that I did realize that they are very similar, and that I don't know if I would want that, because what does that say about Daisy to herself? You know, I mean, maybe I'm reading too deep into it. But
no, I think that's exactly why you'd want that, is because of the horrible consequences.
Horribleness.
I think Fitz needs a shot to at least give him brain damage.
Well, now we all
has
have
to
this
throw him out of an airplane.
Now that he's back to life and I guess probably collecting all the damage he's taken, everybody gets a shot now on finishing Ward off, and he can come back yet again.
Yay! We've created an immortal Ward, which is actually the consequences of taking law in your own hands, I guess, in your own robot hands. It was an interesting episode, and I'm curious to see where the series is going. I'm wondering if they're going to dip back into the connecting with the greater MCU, although that in Marvel is a big question mark these days. But I think there's a lot to be said. I think it was a pretty fun time. Any last predictions before we take a break, or a break for a half season?
I want to say that maybe just because I loved how season 2, early season 3 Ward is, but I want to say that Ward becomes the dominant mind eventually. Right now the alien is host to his bodies, but I'm pretty sure there's still some of Ward left in him, and I feel like Ward is such a strong will and such a crazy mofo. He's going to be like, okay, you got this grand plan for Hydra, but me. Now this is my destiny to be the one controlling everything, and so I just want to see Crazy Ward again, but now superpowered. That's my hope for the future.
Civil War, man.
You want to see a tie-in with
Civil War tie-in is? I want it.
I think that would be interesting. I think it's time. I think we need to know what the Avengers think of Clark Gregg or of Agent Coulson. I think that would be interesting. And to
Actually,
speak
I
of
want to
Matt's
know what
point,
they think of Clark Gregg.
No, that would be
Coulson.
You look just like an old friend of ours. And to answer Matt's thing, I feel like there's some place to play with the fact that we don't know what the creature is or what aspects of its personality it grabs from the things that it inhabits. It may not just be like a monster with a full conscious and id, a superego, an ego that fills in a corpse that puppets around. It may actually not have a personality and absorb. I mean, it acted very will-like. It may not have been an act. It may have just became will. In which case, we may have a ward, a creature that basically takes up all of Ward's memories and goes, yeah, all right, I'll follow up on what Ward is. It's very similar in the comics to things that happen to like Vision and other characters that have, in their way back history, absorbed the memories or histories or whatever of other characters before them, and now have them in some sort of dormant state. And writers play with that. So there's a lot of potential in that kind of storytelling. You'll be glad to know. We don't know what we'll get, but I'm excited to find out. All right.
You know what I'm excited for?
What?
Agent Carter.
Woo!
Right.
When is it?
January.
It's not for another month and a half, but we'll be back with Agent Carter before we're back with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Sounds excellent. And we're, of course, always willing to do more Hangouts. If you like, comment on this video, and we'll talk about any damn TV show you want, including
Tell us what we should be watching. New spring premieres coming up after the winter break.
Sounds awesome. All right, subscribe to our YouTube channel to find out more crap like this, and share it, because every share puts another $1 in our bellies. We should probably be using those dollars to buy food.
I can buy 1 grain of rice.
That's not
It's very expensive where I am.
That's not how it works. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.